Hello and welcome to the Learning Love Podcast, brought to you by the Learning Love Foundation, helping people transform how they love, live, and lead. I'm your host, Dr. Mark A. Hicks, and I want to thank you for joining us today as we spend some time learning love. Love is the answer. Now all we have to do is explore all the questions, learning how to apply the principles of love to all the struggles we face in our life. One of those struggles that affects so many relationships is the struggle of anxiety. We live in a culture that seems to breed anxiety. It is an outrage culture. We're bombarded with anger and outrage in every area on the news and social media. It's what drives a lot of the media that we see. And so many of us are living with dysfunction within our families. We're dealing with stress at workplaces. There's a lot of reasons to have anxiety. And when we do, it affects all those relationships in our life. The relationships that are causing us stress very often cause that anxiety, and it has a reciprocal effect to make that relationship worse. And so we're just spiraling sometimes. We have stress at work, and so we get upset about it. We have more anxiety, and it causes tension with our coworkers. We have stress at home that we may have brought home from work. The stress from work comes home with us. We also have stressors there, and then we get upset. We get high levels of anxiety. We don't feel good. We put up barriers. We get defensive, and then that just causes more problems in our relationships. And so anxiety is one of those things that can just take stress and exacerbate it. We're going to have stress in our life. We're going to have stress and tension at times in every area of life. But when we start developing a lot of anxiety around that, we start feeling that anxious feeling within us, it tends to cause even more problems. We feel worn out. We feel exhausted. We feel defensive. We get angry. We get depressed. We have a lot of things that come from anxiety. And so today we're going to talk about a few things that can be applied in your life to help you deal with the anxiety that you feel, to ratchet that back so that you have the capacity to deal with the stress, to deal with the stressors of life. We're not going to eliminate stress, but we can deal with it when we ratchet back those feelings of anxiety. Now, first, let me give a little disclaimer. There is such a thing as anxiety disorder. Okay, this is a disorder in the brain, just like there can be problems with your heart, or you can dislocate your shoulder, or you can, break your ankle. There are physical things that can go wrong. All right, we can have problems in our pancreas that causes diabetes. We can have things that go haywire in our body that causes us to have high blood pressure. There are just things that go wrong sometimes that happen to us, or for whatever reason, we have some health issue. The brain is no different, okay? When we have brain issues, it is not any different than having a heart issue or a problem with our stomach or our pancreas. It's an organ of the body. And sometimes we think, well, if I have anxiety, that's about my willpower and I just need to be stronger. There are conditions like anxiety disorder that are a brain dysfunction, that chemically things have gotten off in the brain. Things are not firing off as they would ordinarily in a person that didn't have anxiety disorder. And that is treatable, okay? So if you have chronic extreme anxiety, see a doctor, see a counselor, get help for that. There's really good medications out there, really good, that can help you with this. There are a number of them. So if you've taken one at one point and you say, well, that didn't work. Okay, everybody's not the same. One medicine may not work for one person, but another one might. And so keep going to your doctor, explain the situation, and find the medication that works for you if you have this anxiety disorder, this chronic reaction to anxiety, this chronic feeling of anxiety that permeates your life and is so intense that it begins to disrupt your life. See a doctor, see a counselor, get help. There is really good help for this stuff. But what we're talking about today is the kind of anxiety we all feel when we start getting stressed and we have these feelings of anxiousness and we start reacting to that anxiousness. We get defensive, we start spouting off, or we retreat. We have this fight or flight mentality. We've all heard about this fight or flight, that we run away or we want to fight and try to destroy somebody because we're feeling anxious. And very often that can be somebody we love because it's safe to take it out on them. And that's not a good practice. So many times we get stressed at work, we start feeling a lot of anxiety, and we come home and take it out on our spouse. That's a bad plan. Okay, it's maybe safe to kind of vent and take something out on your spouse a few times because they love you and they'll take it, but there's limits to that. You can really destroy relationships with that kind of practice. And so what do? If we struggle with anxiety, here's a couple of things that you can do. Mel Robbins says, never say, I have anxiety. I heard her say that. I thought that's great advice. Never say, I have anxiety, because that begins to identify as you. Okay, you have blonde hair or dark hair or red hair. You have a particular eye color. You have a particular complexion. Those are characteristics of who you are. Anxiety is not a characteristic of who you are. It's something you're experiencing for a reason. So never say, I have anxiety. Instead say, I feel anxious because, and name it. Name the trigger. Name the trigger that's causing you anxiety. So many times we start to feel anxious and we don't even know why. Particularly if we've struggled with anxiety for a long time, we start to just feel like that's just us. And we start to identify with it. Well, I just have anxiety. And we start to justify not taking care of ourselves. We start to justify mistreating people, being harsh with people we love. We start to justify being defensive and difficult because, well, I have anxiety. No, you don't have anxiety. You experience anxiety for a reason. Name that reason. Name the trigger. When we start to name it, it puts it in perspective. I feel anxiety because I'm running late. And if you're an anxious person and you are always on time and it's important to you to be on time and it really annoys you when people are late and you expect that of yourself that you're going to be on time and then you're running late. It's not that you have anxiety. You feel anxious because you're running late. Name that. And once we do, we may be able to see it's not the end of the world. Okay, may not like it. I don't like being late, but it happens sometimes. And it's not normal because I'm usually on time. So I don't have to be anxious about this. It's just an anomaly. It's something that happened today. And we can not only name what the trigger is, but why. I'm running late because there was a traffic jam that never happens on this road, but apparently there was an accident and it made me late. Okay, those kinds of things, rather than saying I have anxiety, name it. It may be more complicated than the example I gave, but name the trigger. Identify it. And if you're struggling to identify it, think through it. Okay, go through what is it that's causing me to have this anxiety. And if you can never name it, there is just no way that you could name it, no matter how much you think through it. That's a good sign that you have an anxiety disorder. That's when the response is, I need to get some help for this. I need to go see a doctor and talk about this. Because if there is no trigger, and you are just feeling anxious without a trigger, that's probably a malfunction in the brain. That's a disorder, chemical disorder going on in the brain. Go get help for that. There's good treatment. But usually there's a trigger. There's a reason. So name it. And that tends to put it in perspective. You don't have anxiety. You feel anxiety because, and you name that trigger. That in itself is identifying it, and then you can do something about it. That's when we can start addressing the cause, when you know the trigger. Now, once you know that, once you know what has triggered you into this anxiety, get really curious. The second thing is to be super curious, intensely curious. Why did this cause me to feel anxious? Why does running late cause me to be anxious? A lot of people run late. Some people run late on purpose. Some people do it as a power move. Some people just want attention and they want to come in late so everybody can see them. I don't know. There's just a lot of reasons that people run late. And hey, traffic is traffic. We can't control that. It's going to be inevitable that some people are late sometimes. That just happens. And so when we start to get curious, what is it about this that I'm afraid of? Am I afraid somebody's going to be mad at me? Am I afraid that I'm going to lose some business deal because I'm late for this? What is it that I'm afraid is going to happen? What is it that is causing this anxiety? Once I've named the trigger, what is it about this trigger that I'm finding so bad? What is it about the trigger that is causing me to have such intense feelings of anxiety? And we start to really work through that. When we start to think through it, it loses its sense of being the scary monster in the background. That's what anxiety is to a lot of people. It's just this scary, unidentified dread that we don't really know, but we know it's there. We can feel it, but we're not really sure what it is. And even if we name it, there's still a lot of murkiness behind the why of why this causes us to feel such anxiety. When we start to get intensely curious and we start talking through that, and that's where therapy can really help sometimes, even if it's not an anxiety disorder, when we talk through it with someone, maybe a therapist, maybe a trusted friend, when we start to say it out loud and we start to explore it and analyze it, it takes the mystery away. It takes away this dark, scary corner that is causing a lot of anxiety that we don't know what it is or why. Get really curious. Talk through it with someone. Write it down. Do some journaling. Do some writing. Find out why this particular trigger causes you such anxiety. You may find out, in fact, it's very likely that if you've had this anxiety for a long time, it goes back to your childhood. It's very common. Well, I was just always in trouble at home. If I got home late, my mom would throw a fit. My dad would want to know where I was and why I was late. And they always were a stickler to make sure I was at home on time. And maybe as a child, we started getting into this system of, I can't be late. My parents are going to be mad. If I'm ever late, I better have a good excuse. And we build that into our way of thinking as a child in our developmental years. Very often it just becomes our routine as an adult, that we just feel the same way. We build these triggers in as children. And so we are feeling the same way when we go into a business meeting when we're 5 minutes late that nobody cares about because it's getting started late anyway. But we're feeling the same way we felt as that 8-year-old that got home late, and mom and dad want to know why you were late. Where have you been? Why were you so late? What have you been doing? And so we feel the same way, even though it's not the same circumstance. When we start to identify that, we can see this is not the same circumstance. I feel like that because I was kind of wired up to feel like that as a child, because my parents, they worried about me and they wanted to know where I was and when I'd be home. And if I was late, they'd be worried. And that was their personality. That was the way they handled things. Doesn't mean they're good or bad parents. It's just the way they handled things. But going into a business meeting when it hadn't even started yet because we're 5 minutes late doesn't have to be the same anxiety. So many times we're just reacting to those childhood triggers, those childhood mentalities. And if we start really getting curious, and we can even go back and say, why were my parents like that? Why did they get so upset? Why did they want to make sure I was home at exactly that minute? Why couldn't I be 5 minutes late? And we might start exploring things going on in their personality. Doesn't mean they're bad people. Everybody has quirks. When we start getting intensely curious and breaking it down, what is it that's causing this trigger? We might start to find that we don't have to react this way, that our mom's not going to be there to scold us because we were late. We're just going to go into a meeting that probably hasn't even started 5 minutes because everybody's coming in late. And so get curious, think through it and talk through it and write through it if it's causing us problems. And very often anxiety does cause us problems in our relationships with ourselves and with others. Think through it, name the trigger, and get really curious about why that trigger is there. And third, show yourself some compassion. We are so hard on ourselves sometimes. Show yourself compassion. If you feel anxiety and you start naming the trigger and you start getting curious about it, follow that up with some compassion. You know what? It's okay that sometimes I feel this way. Everybody has a thing. Everybody has a quirk. Everybody has oddities and things that, may not really add up logically. It's just the way we react, and that's okay. Show some real compassion to yourself, that it's okay to have your feelings. It's okay to have anxiety sometimes, and just giving yourself that permission, that it's okay that I feel like that little kid that's going to get scolded for being a few minutes late by his parents who always wanted to make sure I was home on time. If that's your story, show some compassion to yourself. Show compassion to your parents. That's the way they were. Maybe it caused you some problems later on because they were a little too intense about it, or maybe a lot too intense about it. It's okay. Show compassion to everybody involved. It's all right to have quirks. It's all right to have oddities and things that just kind of don't always logically add up. That's fine. Show yourself that compassion and allow yourself to sometimes be wrong and to sometimes be late or to sometimes be anxious or to sometimes just not get it right, and allow yourself to not be anxious even when you don't get it right. It's okay to let that anxiety go and to know that yeah, sometimes things aren't going to go as planned, and sometimes things are going to be stressful, and sometimes you're not going to get things to work out the way you wanted to. And you can get all ramped up about it and beat yourself up and be all anxious about it. Or you can show yourself compassion and say, you know what? Today it just didn't go the way I wanted it to. Today I didn't get there on time. I'll do better next time. Show yourself that level of compassion, a high level, intense compassion for yourself. Anytime you start feeling these things, it's okay. You don't have to beat yourself up. You don't have to be defensive. It's just stuff that happens. And allow the stuff that happens in life to just be the stuff that happens in life. Compassion, particularly for yourself, will go a long way to alleviating the anxieties that we feel. So if you have intense, chronic anxiety that doesn't really seem to have a particular trigger, definitely get help. Definitely go to a doctor. You're probably dealing with some sort of anxiety disorder, and that is a treatable condition. But in the normal, ordinary, average way of life, we all experience anxiety. So name it. You don't have anxiety. You experience it for a reason. Name the reason. Name that trigger. Get really curious about that trigger. And above all, show yourself a lot of compassion. It's okay that things happen sometimes outside the way you would want them to. It's okay. People make mistakes. We all make mistakes. Show yourself compassion in the midst of it. If you do that, you can start to ratchet down a lot of those anxieties. You'll help yourself and you'll help your relationships as well. And that's my thoughts today as we are building the healthy, happy, thriving relationships that we all want and need and deserve. So I hope you'll go to my website, markahicks.com. There's a lot of good things there, including easy links to buy my book, Learning Love, Building a Life That Matters, and Healthy Relationships That Last. I am grateful to the Learning Love Foundation who makes this show possible. You can find out more at learninglovefoundation.com. As always, thank you to my producer, Abby Graves of Abby Graves Productions, and thank you to all of you for listening. Until next week, love well, everyone.